Hey guys, it's Cayley. I'm back with another What Sold from Last Week video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my sales that happened on all the three major platforms that I sell on, which are eBay, Poshmark, and Depop. If you'd like staying in the know about what buyers are looking for, I do these weekly What Sold videos, so consider subscribing down below so that you don't miss what buyers are looking for. All right, let's dive right in. Okay, so starting with my fastest sales last week, I sold these Antonio Milani women's boots. These were absolute stunners. And this is just a really great style-based piece. Boots like these can be leaned into country cowgirl, western. They're a great statement piece. They can even be leaned into whimsy goth. There's just so many different ways this can go and keywords that you can use. But the one thing I want to point out is that they are a statement piece. And when it comes to style-based sourcing and also brand-based sourcing, the stuff that stands out is typically the stuff that sells. This is a suede leather studded boot, as you can see, kind of like almost a celestial western look to it. And Antonio Milani isn't a brand that I typically seek after, but again, any brand can really have great pieces in it. So just a great style-based piece. This actually sold the exact same day that I got it listed, and I believe this was also sent to me via consignment. I had them listed, I think, around $75, accepted an offer of $68, making my earnings on Poshmark $54.40. Next up, also kind of a surprising quick sale just because of the brand. It is Zara, not a top seller for me, at least not anymore. This also sold the exact same day that I got it listed. And Zara is one of those brands I come across fairly often. Again, most of the stuff not worth flipping, but they can either have great sell-through rate, like categorically pieces, or even great style-based stuff. In Zara, I do find that their oversized dressy blazers like this actually do perform well for me. But as always, you want to check your comps. This one was also a really great color for spring, this light baby blue, and it was a linen blend. So lots of factors stacking on top of each other. I also use keywords in my description, such as office, business, career, old money, and preppy. And I listed this originally, I think around 50, I think, and it ended up selling for $40, again, the exact same day that I got it listed, and that made my earnings $32 on Poshmark. This is just a great example of how there really are no bad brands. There are bolos in every single brand. If you're somebody that comes across Zara often, I highly recommend going and just doing a deep dive on the brand itself. I actually recommend doing that with anything that you frequently come across, but especially Zara, because there can be some really good hidden bolos. Okay, next up, this is one of the key categories that I'm looking for in spring and summer. They are skirts. And this is definitely a brand-based skirt. This is Lilly Pulitzer. Their Luxe Letic line has a really high sell-through rate in most things, so definitely keep your eye out for them. And traditionally, you're going to see lots of prints, so it should be pretty easy to identify. But skirts in general, meaning the shorts underneath of the skirt, is a higher ASP, a higher sell-through rate in just about any brand. So if I find a Talbot skirt, I'm looking it up with the size. If I find a lost some of the brands that I'd be looking for, but Old Navy maybe, but you get the point. Be looking them up and brands that you wouldn't normally get because skirts are very trendy right now. This Lilly Pulitzer Luxe Letic skirt sold in just one day for an offer of $35, and that made my earnings $28, and this one sold on Poshmark. Okay, next up was an eBay sale. This is a really quick style-based flip category for me, which are Victoria's Secret dresses. Actually, they're more like slips that I put into the dresses category. They can be really good pieces depending on what the overall color and makeup is to lean into different style aesthetics. They typically fall into a lot of them. So this one was a little bit more dressy. It was full all over lace with a nude lining. And so I went more towards like cocktail party with this one, but it also could have been leaned into whimsy goth and some other things. Listed this one for $30 and it sold in just 4 days for that full asking price of around $30, making my earnings on eBay at $22.67. Next up, this is another, I would consider like a statement piece. Again, just pay attention as we go through. There are not very many plain pieces. A lot of them contain unique elements to them, which are really elevating it. Everybody's looking for, again, the statement pieces. So this is a great brand that I like looking for called Eileen Fisher. I find a lot of Eileen Fisher, and when it pairs with really great materials such as silk and longer lengths, such as this is a midi skirt, it can perform fantastic. This one I think I listed for around $45 and accepted an offer of $38. This one sold in just 5 days. I also use keywords such as luxe, chic, elevated, and capsule. And this one was sold on Poshmark, making my earnings $30.40. All right, next up was another skirt, selling a lot of longer length skirts. This one was linen. I mentioned last week, tons and tons and tons of linen is selling for me. But not everything linen, right? You got to pair it within very specific pieces. And for me, longer length linen skirts are very trendy, especially when they are in more like neutral colors like this. I use keywords on this tan Saks Fifth Avenue linen maxi skirt, such as minimalist, office, lightweight, and breathable. This one sold on an offer for $29, and this one sold in just 8 days of being listed, making my order earnings $23.20. Okay, next up, also kind of a surprising quick sale. This was Torrid. This is a brand I'm super picky on these days. We were lucky enough to get this one new with tags, and with Torrid, I typically only look at the very like witchy, gothy style stuff, which this one definitely fit. Plus it was a more substantial piece. Plus it was new with tags. So lots of factor stacking had to take place with this one. This is also a high-low skirt, and these like asymmetric details really are a factor people are looking for right now. This one sold in just 13 days for an offer of $29, and that made my earnings $23.20. I use keywords on this such as mesh, fairy grunge, whimsy goth, and dark romantic. All right, and then the last one I'm going to show you today for my quickest sales, all of these sold in 2 weeks or less, and then we'll move on to my higher price sales. This one, oh my gosh, this one had so much attention. You can see this is on Depop. I have over 100. It could be multiple hundreds, but definitely over 100 likes on this. It had close to 18,000 views and 761 clicks, which is a lot compared to some of the other platforms. That's why I really like Depop. If you're not already on there and you're ready to add another platform, I think it can be an excellent one because the visibility over there is just like crazy. It doesn't always mean it's going to translate to a sale, but the visibility is really good, even compared to like eBay. My stuff's not being shown this much on eBay. So this is something I got at a thrift store. I think I paid $6.99. I love finding Y2K handbags. This is another like category in spring and summer I frequently get, and it's very frequently overlooked. This is the brand Kathy Van Zeeland, which can be a pricier brand retail wise, but certainly not one that as a whole has a high sell-through rate. I only looked at this one because it was very Y2K. You can see there's bling all over it. We've got the charms and the shape as well. This like slouchy shoulder bag, very trendy for Y2K. We listed this one for $75. I used keywords such as Y2K shoulder bag, studded, rare, bling, and brats. This one sold in just 14 days, so 2 weeks, on an offer for $65, making my earnings $53.23. And yeah, such a great sale. If you see a shape like this in a brand that you wouldn't normally get, it's definitely worth looking up. All right, now moving on to my higher price sales. These ones didn't necessarily sell super quickly, but they did bring in the highest return. Some of them actually did sell quickly. Like this one just sold in 19 days. This is a no-name brand. Didn't even include it in the title. Just to make room for better keywords. Beautiful velvet burnout dress. This one's a little hard to see just because of all the dark elements, but it was layered. It tied in the back to be more form-fitting. It had really stunning shapes and colors to it. Very, very whimsy goth, whimsical, all the things that people are looking for. And so I priced higher because of that. I listed this one for $60 and it sold for my full asking price of $60, again in just 19 days. That made me my order earnings on eBay $45.34. And I love showing these because This stuff is so passed on at thrift stores, at bins, at garage sales. If you know what you're looking for, especially in the dresses category where things tend to be more substantial, you can find a lot and make a lot of money. And so it's definitely one worth looking into are these like Y2K dresses that branch out into some different style aesthetics. Okay, next one is a Lily Pulitzer, another one. I sold a lot of Lily Pulitzer last week. It's definitely a brand I look for in spring and summer. Their dresses also perform well. Even their like more simple casual ones like this, some of them can be really high sell-through rate. I always look up the either a Google lens or the style number on the tag itself to figure out the exact style name. This one was called the Sophie dress. And also if you find Lily Pulitzer in a larger size larger up, typically higher sell-through rate as well. So this one was a size extra large. We listed this Sophie dress pre-owned for $55 and it sold in just 27 days for my full asking price of around that 55, making my order earnings on eBay 42.04. So great return on investment on this one. All right, next one. This is one of my higher price sales as well, which I thought was interesting because it's definitely out of season. But back in fall and winter, leather or suede paired with a bomber style in the men's department was like off the charts trendy. And so I am still taking risks on some of them and just making sure to price a little bit more competitively. And yeah, this one sold in spring. This is a Croft and Barrow men's suede leather bomber jacket. Croft and Barrow not being the best brand, but again, those combinations of factors together extremely powerful. This one did have some distressed look to them as long as there's not like actual tears or holes in the leather and it has just an overall cool distressed look. Sometimes it actually adds to the piece, but I always make sure to put it in my title. This one sold for my full asking price of $50, making my earnings $37.82. All right, another high price sale. You guys know I sell so many J. Crew women's and men's blazers, but I mostly find the women's. And the schoolboy blazer, this particular one, is one of their most popular styles. I continue to pick them up and I usually sell them on average for around $40. This one is a linen blend one. And we had it listed for around 55, I think, and accepted an offer of 46. This one sold in just 32 days of being listed, and that made my order earnings on Poshmark $36.80. All right, this next dress took forever to sell. It took 216 days. But I'm glad that it did sell. I kind of wish I would have priced a little bit more competitively, but I thought it was a really great piece. It is a New At Tags J. Jill maxi dress in a size 2X New At Tags. So lots of good factors here. And J. Jill in these longer length dresses, especially in larger sizes, can be really good. I think if this were linen, like it would have sold so quickly. But it's 100% cotton, which is still a material worth looking for, but just not as quick selling as linen. So this one did take a while to sell. However, it did end up selling for my full asking price of $45, making my order earnings $34.25. All right, next up, this one I got from consignment. This is a newer brand to me called Never Fully Dressed. I do not think that they have like a super high sell-through rate, but they are pricey. This one was a great style. We've got some mixed prints here, kind of a baby doll empire waist and just lots of really good shaping. Plus it was new with tags, new with defects. Actually, there was a problem with it. But very like 70s print boho vibes, which makes sense why it sold when it did closer to Coachella. This one I sold in just 26 days of being listed for an offer of 40. I listed it for 45 on Depop, which is where it sold, and that made my order earnings $33.43. All right, and the last one before we move into some noteworthy items, this is also one of my higher price sales. This is a fantastic bolo brand to look for called Scotty Vest. They tend to be very understated. They're very simple looking and you'll usually find them in the men's department, but they are very thick. They're really well known for having like interior pockets for everything and being really good for travel. And so they're pretty easy to overlook if you don't know what you're looking for, but you feel anything thick and see a ton of pockets, definitely look it up. And Scotty Vest, really good brand, high sell-through rate. I listed this one. It was called the Cotton Hoodie. That's it. Listed it for $40. It did sell for a full asking price in just 17 days of being listed. And that made my earnings on eBay $30.50. All right, now moving into some other items I wanted to show you that I thought were noteworthy but didn't really fit into the other categories. Just some things that I would be on the hunt for. This is Rip Skirt Hawaii. This is a fantastic brand to look for. They're more well known for their skirts that kind of wrap around and fasten. But I wanted to mention this because I didn't realize until more recently that they actually sold dresses and they can have a great sell-through rate as well. So this is a size small pre-owned rip skirt Hawaii maxi dress. I had it listed close to 40 and it sold in just 16 days on an offer for $34, making my order earnings $27.20. And next up, this is such a crazy sale, mostly because it's like way out of season, but I'm still selling a ton of these men's thermal shirts, Henleys, crew necks, like this one, like all of it. And they're selling very regularly for me still. So I had slowed down on it, but now I'm thinking I might start picking them up again. This is one example from that. It is a vintage American Eagle men's very grungy green thermal waffle knit shirt in a size extra large. I actually listed this higher as a test because again, I was selling so many of them in fall and winter that I thought I would edge the pricing up and see kind of where my buyer capped out. This one had a lot of great factor stacking, great brand. It was vintage, larger size, etc. So I priced it close to $40 or $45 and accepted an offer of $36. And this also sold just over 90 days. So pretty well within my goal, $36. Crazy. So I might start picking these up again, even though they technically are out of season. That made my order earnings $28.80 on Poshmark. All right, another Poshmark sale I wanted to mention. This is a no-name brand, although I've picked up quite a bit in this brand, Simply Irresistible, as style-based pieces, so maybe it is one you want to look out for. But I'm still selling tons of Y2K baby doll tops. They can branch out into many different aesthetics. Some of them are like the preppy, like casual stuff like Abercrombie, American Eagle, other stuffs like this where it's a little bit more dressy. And I think both can do well. You just got to know the right keywords to pair with it. But one thing I wanted to point out was these darker Asian inspired floral prints seem to perform pretty well in Y2K. And so it always gives me slightly more elevated value. You can also see that this one had a slight flare sleeve too. I use keywords on this one such as baby doll, fairy grunge, and looks like we're missing whimsy goth, but that would have probably been a really great keyword. I also use dark romantic, and this ended up selling for $32 on Poshmark, and that made my earnings $25.60. All right, something else I'm looking for, just another example of some skirts. This is a pretty plain one I wanted to mention. It is a no-name brand, but it does have some statement elements to it, even though it is a little bit more plain. It's longer length, it's tiered, it's got a crinkle effect, and it has a cream ethereal color to it. I use keywords such as crinkle, fairy, angel core, ivory, and maxi. And I listed this for $30 on eBay. This one sold in just 22 days of being listed for my full asking price of $30, and that made my earnings close to $23. And I just think that there's so much stuff out there like this, again, that people are passing on. I would really recommend focusing on like one category or one aesthetic and really practicing it and testing selling stuff in your store before branching out into another. But once you get it figured out, it's really easy to just find them all the time and then use the same keywords and move them. All right, another example of a skirt. I think I showed this in a reel not that long ago. This is just Woolrich, but I'll show you the label, but not really a brand you want to look for in skirts in general. But it had a really great style aesthetic to it. It was a dark brown. It was full button, and it was a longer length skirt. This one, I use keywords like 90s grunge, and forest fairy to move this one. I think I had it listed for $35 and I accepted an offer of $28. I also put this one on an AI model just to really show that 90s grunge look. And this one sold in just 65 days for an offer of $28 on Poshmark, making my order earnings $22.40. And then the last noteworthy one I wanted to show you, I've mentioned this before, but I think it's worth mentioning again because I come across these so often, especially at the bins, which is where I pick up most of them. Wide leg linen pants. Wide leg linen pants. The combination of those together right now, very, very powerful. I usually only flip them for about 25 bucks, but it's again, wash, rinse, repeat. This one's Tahari. It's a size XL. I do think larger sizes help. I use keywords such as coastal, beach, clean girl, and travel, as well as wide leg linen pants. And this one sold for around $22, making my order earnings on eBay $16.75. All right, now moving on to a few items of things that I wish I would have passed on or done something differently with. Learn from my mistakes if you would like, but I always include a few of these at the ends of these videos now because you guys seem to like them. This one is Patagonia. I wanted to show you this because, again, we talk about there's no bad brands. Don't focus just on brand, but also like I think some people get tunnel vision when they see a Bolo brand, and it still happens to me. So these are a pair of women's really interesting print baggy shorts, and I found these at the bins and I thought it's Patagonia at the bins, like I'm gonna get it, right? I wish I wouldn't have because when you look up women's baggies Patagonia shorts, there isn't a super high sell-through rate. And no matter how I drilled down to this, it still wasn't super high sell-through rate. I should have left them behind because of that. Otherwise, they would have been a style-based piece, and I can't really think of like a super trendy aesthetic that these would fall into. But again, I got that tunnel vision because it was Patagonia at the bins. These have sat for 205 days, and I ended up taking an offer of 10 on these just to get them moving because they've been sitting for so long, and that made my order earnings on Poshmark $7.05. I know we've all had experiences like this, and you can put them down in the comments down below. Like, what is one brand that you really struggle with leaving behind, especially at the bins, but really anywhere? Patagonia is definitely one of them for me, and I still struggle with several of the brands, especially if they're at the bins. So let me know what yours is down below, but definitely a learning lesson for me. All right, and this is a brand I used to pick up a ton in plus sizes. It does have a higher retail, and for a while was selling really well for me. And I wanted to show it to you because you never want to get too comfortable with like your constant bread and butter. You always want to recheck solds, comps, sell-through rate, all of that to make sure that it is still moving in that direction. And unfortunately, Foxcroft is a brand that has fallen off for me in terms of sell-through rate. So I'm very, very picky with Foxcroft now, if I even get it at all. The other thing with this is it was a size 16, which technically is a plus size, but not large enough that I would want to move that. I'm trying to focus on the larger sizes. And so I don't think that aided in the listing either. This took 203 days to sell. I listed it for 25. It did end up selling on an offer to watcher for $22.40, and that made my earnings $16.88, but again, took over 200 days to sell. All right, and the very last one, this is just another example of a brand I used to pick up in everything, and now you got to be really picky with this brand. It is Johnny O. And so just never get too comfortable with the brand. These are a pair of men's performance shorts, and they were in a good size too, a size 34. I had them listed originally at 25. They have sat for also 203 days, and I went ahead and accepted an offer of $16 just to see these go, and that made my earnings $11.30 on Poshmark. All right, guys, so that's it for what sold last week. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching. Let me know how your sales are going down below in the comments. I know last week I asked what was your plan for summer slowdown, and some of you guys answered. If you want to put your summer slowdown plan down below in case you missed that one, I'd love to hear about it. Our plan is we've been working for a while to lower cost of goods by sourcing more at the bins. We're going to continue doing that and going to more yard sales. We've also incorporated consignment. So that's a $0 cost of goods, and that's been really awesome, as well as we're going to slightly bump up our listings as well to just combat that. But make sure that you do something, because if you don't do anything to combat that slow sales, you're definitely going to see a drop until fall again. And that's just the normal cyclical seasonal cycle of reselling. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.